All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are diving into a story that is so bizarre, so out there, you'd swear it was made up. It's a true tale that walks the line between a biological miracle and just plain weird American folklore. And at the center of it all is a chicken named Mike.
I mean, seriously, how is that even possible? It seems to break every rule of biology, right? But it actually happened. And to figure out how, we need to rewind the clock and go back to the very beginning. So this incredible story doesn't start in some fancy science lab. Nope, it begins on a totally normal farm in Fruita, Colorado. Just a regular day, a regular chore that was about to go spectacularly weird.
It all kicks off on September 10th, 1945. Farmer Lloyd Olson is getting ready for dinner, and his mother-in-law has a special request. She loves the chicken neck. So, trying to be a good son-in-law, he aims the axe a little higher than usual to save that part for her. And with that one swing, he accidentally creates a biological marvel. The next morning, he goes outside and finds the chicken still walking around. Just, without its head. Okay, so this is the part that just blows your mind. How on earth did Mike survive something that should have been lights out instantly? Well, it wasn't magic. The answer is actually hiding in the weird and, frankly, amazing anatomy of a chicken. So here is the absolute crux of it. That axe blow, well, it took off Mike's face, his eyes, the whole deal. But by some miracle, it completely missed the most important part, the brainstem. You gotta think of the brainstem as the body's command center, its life support system. It's the little piece of the brain that handles all the stuff you don't think about. Breathing, heart rate, digestion. It's the autopilot. And get this, because Olson aimed so high, he only took off about 20% of the chicken's brain. A whopping 80% of Mike's brain mass, including that all-important brainstem, was left totally intact, tucked away safely in his neck. It's just incredible. This really shows you the difference, right? The parts of the brain that made Mike, his personality, if you can call it that, they were gone. But the engine room, the basic machinery that kept the lights on, the heart pumping, the lungs breathing, all of that was still running perfectly. But wait. There's another piece to this impossible puzzle. It wasn't just the lucky chop. A blood clot formed almost instantly and perfectly sealed his jugular vein. No fatal bleeding. So you had this 1 in a million swing of the axe, combined with a 1 in a million physiological response. It was a perfect, bizarre storm. Okay, so we've got the crazy science down. Now let's get to the even crazier part, how this farm animal became a literal superstar. A story like this isn't going to stay on the farm for long. Word gets out, and pretty soon, a sideshow promoter named Hope Wade comes calling. And Wade, he doesn't see a biological anomaly. No, he sees dollar signs. He sees Miracle Mike, the Headless Wonder, a star in the making. And boy, was he right. People were obsessed. At the peak of his fame, Mike was pulling in $4,500 a month for the Olson family. You have to remember, for a farmer in the 1940s, that was an unbelievable amount of money. Life-changing. Just to put that into perspective for you, that's like making over 60 grand a month today. For a chicken. He wasn't just a curiosity. He was a cash cow. They even took out a $10,000 life insurance policy on him. So you might be wondering, how did he eat? Well, he couldn't. This is where the Olsons really stepped up. Mike's 18-month survival was completely dependent on them. They had to feed him a liquid diet with an eyedropper, right into his esophagus. And the most critical part? They had to use a syringe to clear mucus from his throat so he wouldn't choke. It was a constant, careful process. And here's the wild part. He didn't just survive on this routine, he thrived. He went from a skinny 2.5-pound chicken to a massive 8 pounds. He more than tripled his weight. The headless chicken was somehow healthier and fatter than he'd ever been with a head. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. But, as you can probably guess, not everyone was cheering. Mike's fame came with a huge dose of controversy. The Olsons got tons of mail, and let me tell you, a lot of it was hate mail. People were absolutely appalled. The public was completely split down the middle. On one side, you had people who saw Mike as this incredible symbol of survival, a true miracle. But on the other side, people saw the Olsons as cruel and exploitative. Some letters were really harsh, even comparing what they were doing to Nazi experiments, which just shows you how raw the nerves were right after the war. Mike's wild ride as a touring celebrity came to a shocking and really tragic end.
But even death wasn't the end of his story, not by a long shot.
It all went down in a motel room in Phoenix, Arizona in March of 1947. Mike started to choke on his own mucus, something that happened regularly. But this time was different. In a moment of pure tragedy, the Olsons realized they'd made a fatal mistake. They'd left the cleaning syringe back at the sideshow. There was nothing they could do. The one simple tool that kept him alive was gone, and Mike suffocated. And for a long, long time, that was it. The story of Mike the Headless Chicken just kind of faded away, became a weird local legend. But then, in 1999, his hometown of Fruita, Colorado, decided it was time for a comeback. They resurrected his story, and this time, they weren't going to treat him like a freak show. They were going to turn him into a folk hero. And that's how we get the annual Mike the Headless Chicken Festival. It's this fantastic, bizarre celebration of his refusal to die. They have all these crazy events, like a run like a headless chicken 5K race, chicken poop bingo, the whole shebang. It's wonderfully weird. So today, Mike's legacy is everywhere. It's not just a silly story. There's a 5-foot-tall metal sculpture of him in town. He's in the Guinness World Records officially. And neuroscientists, they still talk about his case as a perfect real-world example of how the brainstem works. He's immortal, in a way. So what are we to make of all this? Mike's story is so much more than just a scientific curiosity. He became this weird, wonderful, and lasting piece of American folklore. It just goes to show you that sometimes the most unbelievable, world-famous stories can start with something as simple as a farmer, an axe, and a hungry mother-in-law. It's a story that, all these years later, still makes you shake your head and wonder.